This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, nerds. I'm Mark Weber, and you're listening to A Graphic Conversation, the bi-weekly podcast where we read, discuss, and review the best, and hopefully not the worst, in graphic novels. I'm joined, as I always am, by the original man-child, Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And this time, this bi-week, we read Manhattan Project.
Really, it's
Manhattan Project.
Really, it's a tri-week this time.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Volume 2 of the Manhattan Projects, and I was excited for this. Although I will admit,
You're a history buff.
I like history, and I like alternate history. This is fun,
unless it's Red Sun.
Well, that's way alternate history. I was excited to get into this one. We a long time ago read Volume 1, and I mentioned that's a long time ago because honestly, I really wish that it wasn't so long ago because there were things I didn't quite remember.
It was a prequel. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah. Long days ago. So the way this podcast works, if you're new, is, like I said, we read, we discuss, we review. We're going to have a spoiler-free section, and that's where you're at right now. And then we will warn you before we get into the spoiler zone that Ricky loves so much. And I hope that you read it and you join in on the conversation. You don't have to. You can just be a part of it, go down below, and argue with people, as you like to do. But I hope that you'll read this because I'm a fan of it. I think Ricky's a fan of it as well. We'll get to it and we'll discuss that. But let's kind of go with our thoughts coming in, Ricky. What were some expectations? What were some thoughts coming in?
My thoughts coming into this was, the big one was, oh shit, what happened the first time? Like you said, it has been so long since we read Manhattan Projects 1, and like even reading the last few pages, I'm sitting there going, shit, I don't want to have to read all this again. I don't want to have to read all of it again. So I eventually went with the, you know what, F it. I'm just going to go in, and it's going to feel weird at the beginning, but eventually everything will come out right. But I mean, I was kind of expecting what we kind of saw in the first one, where it was, you saw some elements of history, very basic, like you see FDR in the first one, and you see guys like Einstein, where you see, though, that weirdness to it, where like this is a graphic novel that'll make you go, whoa, okay, that is what I'm seeing. Like, I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to say it. It's my patent.
Don't spoil.
It's my patent. And like, is this a spoiler? Should I say it? I'm not going to. I'll get to it in spoiler mode. But there's one point with Truman, President Truman, where he's acting in a way where I'm like, I even asked you, I'm like, is there something I don't know? Was like Truman really that kind of a guy, and we just didn't know he was that kind of a guy?
Could be. I don't know. But yeah, it is the alternate history, and it is very different. And the big thing that people get with Jonathan Hickman's book here is that he goes off in this world, and he gets far out there. When this originally was recommended to us by a good friend of Most Valuable Podcasts, Pete Creighton, you know, he wanted us to read this, and his description essentially was that it is so fucking crazy, you're gonna love it. And that's one of the reasons I really liked Volume 1. And one of the things for me I was looking forward to with Volume 2, and I think that Volume 2 gets a little much at times.
I'm going to be honest.
It's a little too crazy, possibly.
There is a character in this, which is a dog that has machine guns popping out of its shoulder blades. That's not even the craziest character that we see in this.
Although... yeah, I mean, it definitely gets crazy, and there's a lot of we're in the 20th century, but we have these great robots and stuff like that. So you just kind of have to go with it. And I'm going to get to that part, but for once, I will start this one. The question of who should read this, you have to be very willing to just accept what's in front of you.
You also have to, I also was thinking, like, if you like history, like it's either if you like history or if you're like, man, I just want to read some weird shit.
Yeah. When you want to say, like, there's no, like, I cannot believe that that's how you're going to portray, President Truman. Things like that are very fun for history lovers and political lovers and people who like the Cold War. So this is very interesting. Also, if you like the Illuminati, they'll make an appearance. So yeah, and there's a lot of that, and I think it's a lot of fun. You kind of have to just accept that weird stuff is going to happen. So we have a few series that we really love on this podcast, one of which, Morning Glories.
Yep.
We had done it earlier, so go back to the previous episodes and check that out.
Manhattan Projects, this is another one.
It's another one, Why the Last Man. But I think that this has some similarity to Morning Glories in a way of it's very complex. There's a lot going on. It can be hard to follow, and I get a little worried that it's just going to spiral off and you're never going to get anything, any reward or any answers. But at the same time, like I was saying, it's the kind of thing where things happen and you just go, okay, I will buy it. Because that's just the crazy world that we live in this.
No, and I mean, with this, maybe it's because we read the first one. I never sat there and was like, wow, like that. Like, there were things where it's like, whoa, okay. I was expecting this to be crazy, but even that's a little bit crazier for me. But I kind of knew what we were kind of expecting a little bit with the craziness and with the just overall kind of like, I'm not going to give away which character it is, but there is literally a scene in here in a slide where a guy is getting, like, the Russians are taking a cow brand and searing a swastika onto a guy's head to mark that he is a German. Yeah. You are a German, swastika on the head. Right on the forehead, right here, Mark.
Yep. Although that's not the only time you've seen something like that in movies and things like that. One of my favorite movies, Inglourious Bastards. But so basically what I'm going to say, guys, is that you should read it. And I think Ricky thinks you should read it too. Anything you want to kind of talk about in the spoiler-free zone?
The shit out of this, Mark.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. It's hard when it's a second volume, when it's a continued series to be spoiler-free, because so much happened last time that you could easily spoil too. So, the way this is going to work, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to read...
One more thing. Well, I forgot to say this. The only thing I did not like about this that is not spoilery, there's a lot of then now. Then now, then now, then here now. Yeah. Then they jump
a lot of
around
comparisons
a lot,
going
where
on.
I'm like, I had to go back a couple times and go, wait, what? Okay, that was then. This is now. This is the future. But then this is now. This is then. It jumps around a lot.
And there's so many comparisons and stuff like that. And it makes sense within the plot, but it's hard to follow. It's a little complicated. So the way this works. If you want to read, you can go ahead and press pause, but don't do it right now because we got some stuff to talk about first. So please, Manhattan Project, Volume 2, it's fun. You should read it. Should you read the first one first? Yeah, probably. But you'll get into it. So if you don't have to do it, you can just join us in the conversation, but feel free to read it and then come back later. We will still be here. So if you want to read and you don't want anything spoiled for you, then pause now. And now we are in spoiler mode. Woo! This is Ricky's favorite time. So for those of you who are back after spending the time to actually read this thing, thank you. Thank you for coming back. If you didn't care to read it and you're just here, then all right, good. Welcome back to you as well, even though it's only been a few seconds.
Spoiler zone.
I hope one day we get sued for that. I really do.
But it's the cover, Spoiler Zone, not Danger Zone.
I don't think it matters. I still hope we get sued. So anyways, let's talk about Manhattan Project. Volume 2, what's your favorite part? What was your favorite part of this book?
My absolute favorite part had to be when you said Illuminati, you were talking about Truman and his group, right?
Yeah.
That was my favorite part because that was the most what the fuck moment of this entire thing. Like what I was mentioning earlier was like, oh yeah, you wouldn't think that President Truman would say this, but he's on the phone and I'm looking at it right here. And then all of a sudden he's like, grave news, we're going to have to postpone the orgy.
Yeah.
And I'm looking
Disappointing.
at it and I'm like, oh my God, everything that's going on around him of like people in cloaks getting their dicks sucked and like blood everywhere. There are lambs sacrificed. And I'm like, holy
Illuminati.
shit. Holy shit. What am I looking at?
What's happening?
It took me a little bit. That was a panel where I was like, okay, did not expect that from President Truman.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a big fan of history, you know all about President Truman and his love of orgies. Go look it up on Google. But no, that's definitely fun. I love the inclusion of the kind of secret government, especially very relevant to today's world with conspiracy theorists. A lot of conspiracy theorists out there about the secret government right now. The deep state, as they like to call it. Now, that's certainly a lot of fun. I am going the less ridiculous route.
Okay.
I actually enjoyed the very, very beginning when we're going off of the
scientist who ran away.
Yeah, the scientist who gets away, and they're like, "Hey,
Captured by the Russians.
you work. Doesn't matter. You cannot escape. You will always have a master, who is always going to be the one in control, who's never going to let you escape."
And it was like, and the thing that it was at the very end, they got to it was that everyone has a master, sometimes two. Mm-hmm. Like everyone has someone that they're answering orders for. Sometimes you have two people that are your master.
Which I love goes for the history kind of thing, but also goes a little bit towards the idea of. So this is the Cold War. For those of you who don't know about the Cold War, let me educate you a little bit.
Cool, Mark. Thank you.
There was the United States, and this works for me because of where I am, but it's probably the opposite right now on camera for you. This is the United States over here if you're looking at a map, and there's this big old country of Russia. It's huge. Or the USSR at this point. And they didn't like each other. There's your knowledge on the Cold War. Basically the way it goes. It's a lot of deterrence. A lot of nuclear bombs, stock up, and a lot of space race. So a lot of fun stuff was going on. So anyways, and at this time your calculator was able to take you to the moon. But anyways, so I love the idea. We're so well known for the Cold War of the hatred and the fact that at any moment in time, the world was going to end. For a lot of you out there, if your parents are, in your 50s or older, they will remember the duck and cover because the nuclear bombs are about to go off.
And cover.
They're going to remember that. So go ask them about that. It was a fun time when everybody thought that at any minute we're all going to die in a horrible nuclear apocalypse.
It's funny because Johnny actually, me and him were talking as we went out to eat the other day, and he goes, yeah, with North Korea, we're probably going to bring those back. Duck
no, they can't reach us
and
yet.
Cover.
Not until their bombs can reach us. Once they can reach us, then we'll bring back duck and cover, even though it doesn't do shit. So anyways, we obviously didn't like each other. Nuclear apocalypses were going to happen at any moment in time. Very much, it almost happened with the whole, Cuban Missile Crisis with JFK, when literally the world was probably seconds away from ending. So this was a very, very real fear, very real issue. But in Manhattan Projects, it's all front.
Yeah.
Because in the deep level, Russia and the United States are working together. And I love that, too, because you're talking about the two masters of this guy who's like, oh, I'm working for this Russian government. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, we're all just kind of working together trying to make this happen. I don't know. It's kind of fun. I like I'm not a conspiracy theorist myself, but I enjoyed reading them. So I enjoy the idea of the deep state in this, the Illuminati, if you want to call it. I'm using the modern term for deep state, but
my favorite part of this, and this was just a microcosm of just because I knew it was going to happen. Like there was the one Russian colonel that goes, "Hey, you help us get to space, I'll set you free.
yeah,
man.
you're good to go."
I'm going to set you free." And then he signs the papers, doesn't put them in, ends up getting killed. So the new guy comes in and goes, or the new robot, I should say, comes in and goes, "Yeah, I see these papers here, but yeah, I'm not done with you yet.
We still need you.
You have more use to me. I haven't used all you out all the way to the bone. So basically, no, you're not free."
Yeah. And so much of the, they were just talking about how he was a fool. He thought he could get free, but It's not going to happen. I do want to clarify. I do not actually believe in the deep state. Just want to put that out there.
You've been mentioning it a lot, Mark.
Because it's very relevant to the times right now. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about that. You can find them all on Reddit. Just, you probably don't want to.
You know who's probably my favorite character in this entire series so far?
Oppenheimer? Yep.
And it's only because, like, whenever we see him, because for 2 straight, whenever we see him, he's got the multiples of himself.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's either his brother, he's blue, his brother's red.
Joseph and Robert.
So when we see Joseph in real life, we see all these red images. I'm assuming those are his brother. But for the second time now...
Well, Joseph has multiple personalities in the story.
Okay. So it is Joseph in real life. That's right. Because at the end of this one, we see he killed his brother Joseph. Or Joseph killed Robert.
Joseph killed Robert.
Ate him so that Robert was then inside him. And now at the end, I just want to, like, that's the big thing that I looked at was, and it kind of hit me like a, whoa, what the fuck moment just right now. Whereas we've seen Joseph, which one killed who? I can't get their names right. Joseph killed Robert, right?
There you go.
Joseph and all of his personalities. But at the very end, we see Joseph inside the mind of Robert, basically now saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to start killing these guys and turn them into me. Yeah. Because all he did was he killed the one guy, took out his eyes, and then you looked. Now there's 2 blue guys. Now there's 2 blues.
Yeah. It's such a weird little story. So very quirky. And I think at times it gets a little... You just get this idea in your head of, does Hickman know where we're going with this right now?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
And I think that scares me a little bit because a big thing that those of you who are fans of Manhattan Projects know is for a while it just kind of stopped. And you know, and I believe it's back now. I think it started back in 2015. They started going again with The Sun Beyond the Stars. But for a while, a lot of people were like, so are we going to keep going?
What's going
on? So it was Volume 5, The Cold War, and then Volume 6, if you like graphic novels, is when it kind of restarted again. So it just kind of feels like we're going to kind of, I don't know, get to a point where we'll never necessarily get answers. We'll never have definitive endings or things like that. And that always worries me. And it just kind of feels at times that maybe it's just a little weird for the sake of being weird. Which I don't know if that's an appropriate complaint.
No, I mean, with this one, and I don't know if this was because, yet again, it had been a while since we read number 1. However, we had a similar issue with Morning Glories.
Yeah.
However, with Morning Glories, I was able to pick up the pieces to where it's like maybe about 5 pages in. Okay, I have my bearings. This is the story. Where I read this one and like you would be like, okay, tell me something from number 1. And I'd be like, we have 2 Oppenheimers.
Yeah.
Like that's really all I could remember is we have 2 Oppenheimers.
I like that Volume 1 kind of addresses the U.S. side, and Volume 2 is kind of addressing the Soviet side. So you get a little bit of both. I mean, that's a lot of fun in that sense. And, you know, it's tough. It's tough to kind of remember when you're going back. I mean, you said that with Morning Glories. I mean, I think it had been like 2 years since we had read the last Morning Glories. It's been a while.
Before this one for this season.
Yeah. So it had been a long time. One thing I really do like is the art for this. It just fits so well. You know,
it's very cartoony.
Very cartoony, but very kind of jarring at times as well. It has a hectic, chaotic kind of feel to it. And I guess an interesting fact from this that I saw was that this volume has 2 different artists. Ryan Brown actually filled in on issue 10 for the normal Nick Pitara, who would usually be the artist on it. So I think it's very cool that you can switch your artists, but the art itself still feels very much like Manhattan Projects.
If you didn't even say that, I wouldn't have even noticed.
It
Would have
definitely
noticed.
takes some credit. Definitely takes some credit for the amount of work that can take. Yeah, I'm a fan of this one. We talked about it in Morning Glory, so I think it's appropriate to talk about it now. The idea of, do we continue reading it? I'm definitely okay with continuing to read it, but
I think I'm in the same side as you were for Morning Glories. I'll give it one more.
you give it one more and you want something. For me, it was for Morning Glories. I want a damn question answered.
Well, it's not questions answered. It's just, it's not the fact of like, man, I can't deal with this. It's just, if we read it again, we can't take as long as we did.
No, there's too much going on.
We can't take as long as we did. And I feel like,
And that one's our fault.
and I feel like this isn't anything about Morning Glories. It's kind of on a topic now of us. Like you mentioned Why the Last Man earlier.
Yeah.
While I was reading this, I thought next season we should read the next Why the Last Man.
Oh, I'd love to. And Why the Last Man, did we read two?
No,
of
we
those?
read one.
Just one. So that's another one where I feel like we're gonna have trouble with that. We definitely need the a little bit
I
more
remember
refresher.
that more than I remember
It's a simpler plot.
number
Yeah.
one.
I mean, this plot is absolutely ridiculous.
Did we read two? We did read two.
Okay, we did.
We did, because I remember them on that in that female house.
Yep.
And that was episode 2.
No spoilers. So we're getting there. A completely different one.
Wait, is this Manhattan Projects or Why the Last Man?
I think this is the kind of one too where it's like so much is going on, and you probably do get the idea as well that we're just kind of spiraling almost in this serial cartoon of it doesn't have to make sense compared to things that have happened earlier.
We
don't have a clear direction we're going towards.
I'll be completely honest. Like, the big thing that I would say is a negative with this is just the story wasn't. I mean, there's going to be some people that read it and probably you're going to be like, Ricky, you're fucking crazy. But, I mean, it didn't have a linear enough story for me, if that makes sense. Because, like, I never felt like I completely got my bearings down and got my 2 feet on the ground. And some people might say, well, Ricky, that's just them doing the whole like crazy thing. And, you know, that's what it's supposed
Par
to
for
be.
the course.
But I go back to what I said in non-spoiler mode, because they're going then and now and then and now and back and forth and back and forth. It's like, where the fuck are we? What am I doing? Wait, this character did this then, but that's then, and this is now, and and I'm just sitting there going, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, I got a little overwhelmed.
It's
reading
very
this.
crazy, and it seems like, as I was just curious to see,
Because it's not like a then where it's like 4 pages and then we go back to now. It's
Yeah.
like 2 pages and then boom, we're back.
and it could be right next to each other at
Yes.
times.
There was one where they did it then on top, now on the bottom.
Yeah,
for 2
I think it was
pages.
pretty early when it was comparing the Soviets to the Nazi Germany, where it
'Cause
was
it's
very
comparing
much
the
like
leaders.
Yeah, right back and forth
Or
with
the
each other.
masters, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So very interesting. I think the thing about this issue, and why I'm in a way it's glad that we both are agreeing of like we should try one more, is it seems like it's setting a lot up. Well, the first one was just let's show you some weird stuff and get you interested, and now this one is the let's establish the world and let's build some things
'Cause
up and set up.
I think I remember liking the first one.
Oh, we both really liked the
I
first
think
one. We
I
had a lot
liked
of
the
fun.
first one. It's
Yeah.
just it's this one I was just like, the story was my biggest pet peeve because, like I said, I was never able to get my bearings down, and like, I mean, at the end it kind of I started to, but even then it's like after I started to,
Yeah.
it was over. And then it was like, oh, is that John? Is that JFK? Is that
Yeah.
JFK? Oh, well, JFK is gone. Bye, JFK.
Yeah, and it's definitely fun. I mean, it's violent, which is fun. So if you like some violence in your graphic
gore.
novels, you're definitely going to get a shit ton of it. And it's kind of fun to see, a guy like Einstein being violent as shit.
Shooting a fucking machine
Gun.
gun.
He's got like a big chain gun.
A Rambo style chain gun, I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
badass as hell. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's just interesting. And I think that it's eccentric, it's quirky, it's whatever word you want to use. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you certainly will like it. Is there anything else you want to do, or are we going to get to a review?
No, like the last part I wanted to say was to me the most interesting part was the end, the Oppenheimer thing. Like actually, like if there's anything from this that, and kind of the reason why I want to read one more is I want to see if they touch that a little more. Because now we see like at the very end the two Robert Oppenheimers that are
Joseph
like,
and Robert.
Yeah, well, no, where it's like. I'm just going to say red op and blue op. So the red op is the mind we're in. And we see all of them on the brain.
Yeah.
But then the blue Oppenheimer kills one of them or pulls the eyes out. And now there's two blues compared to all the reds. So I want to see how he's going to start turning more of them into blue. And does that mean the consciousness then changes into the other Oppenheimer? It's basically whoever controls more people in their color.
And it can be very fascinating, red v blue. Red versus blue for all of you.
Maybe why they picked it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or they could have also picked it because, let's be honest, with
just easy.
how historically, with how historical this comic is, look at politics, red, blue.
Yeah. Well, especially for the United States being the blue and the Soviet Union being the red.
Yeah.
Cold War. That's where we're at. So, Ricky, what are you going to do? What's your review? What's your score?
I kind of want to give it a 2.5, but I'm sitting right now between 2.5 and a 2. I think I'm going to settle on a 2.5. Just right down the middle of the road, 2.5 out of 5. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I think because I wasn't able to get my bearings down in it, it didn't give me a chance to like it.
I'm going to give it a 3. The art is great. It's my favorite part. The story is weird as hell. It's building towards something, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to love it or hate it, but I'm very interested to see where it goes. So it certainly built off of where we were before. It did everything more. It got more weird. It got more violent.
It got more
weird. It got more vague. It got more crazy with the alternate history. It did everything bigger, badder.
Bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, and badder for, science bad in this case of what it's be called. So it's interesting, and I'm definitely interested to see more. But at the same time, it was kind of putting fears in my mind of, are you going to lose me? Are we getting a little too much? Or have you jumped the shark, essentially? And we will certainly find out when we do another one of these ones someday. But in 2 weeks, we're going to do something else.
Okay.
We're going to be reading a Kingsman graphic novel, The Golden Circle. And that might sound familiar to you because there's a certain movie coming out with that similar name. But you might remember this being the British-American action comedy spy, a James Bond type of thing, something like that. The Kingsman Secret Service might be familiar to those of you. So it's this graphic novel where we are going to be going on the kind of James Bond side of this. The agents of the Kingsmen head to the United States to join forces with the Statesmen, Kingsman's American counterpart, after the Kingsman headquarters is destroyed by the Golden Circle. So that's going to be a fun one. It'll certainly be interesting, a little different than what we've been doing so far on this season of A Graphic Conversation, but I'm excited.
I cannot wait. Like, I love these the most when we do the ones where it's like, this is going to be a movie that comes out. Because I've seen the trailers. I love what they're doing, having Jeff Bridges and Channing Tatum in as the Statesman. And usually when we read these, it's usually the ones in the graphic novel. Like, I'm expecting the Statesman in the graphic novel to be 10 times crazier than I've seen so far from the ones in the trailers.
And just a quick follow-up on the Rick and Johnny podcast. You and Rick, and, I said you and Rick. You and Johnny do a lot of movie reviews and stuff. Are you doing this one?
We will be doing a movie review for The Golden Circle.
So subscribe to Most Valuable Podcast on YouTube so that way you can see that movie review for The Golden Circle. It'll be a lot of fun. And, of course, check out the rest of the podcast that we have on MVP.
Also, I'm going to pimp the one we just did. If you saw The Dark Tower or want to, maybe if you want to see The Dark Tower, we just reviewed The Dark Tower this week.
There you go. You got a lot of movie reviews to check out. We have a lot more. And let us know if there's any movies specifically you would love us to review. But let us know what you guys thought about Manhattan Projects. Are we a little too harsh on it? Is it too weird?
Maybe a little bit.
Just let us know what you think down below. Alternate history and all that stuff. Who's your favorite character? Red v Blue. Who's going to win that one? Let us know down in the comment section. But hit that like button. Hit that sub so you know what's going on. And we will see you next week when we read Kingsman: The Golden Circle.